Most people who commute by subway have the same routine. Get on, ride a few stops, get off, go home. That's what Evan Taylor expected on a cold January night in 2019. Evan worked late shifts at a small editing studio downtown. By the time he finished work, the city had already begun to empty. The streets were quiet. Most of the lights in nearby office buildings had gone dark. When Evan reached the subway entrance, the clock above the station stairs read 12:41 a.m. According to the schedule, the last train would arrive in 4 minutes. If he missed it, the next one wouldn't come until morning. The underground station was completely empty. The usual rush hour noise was gone. No footsteps, no conversations, just the distant echo of water dripping somewhere in the tunnel. Evan walked down the platform and sat on a metal bench beneath a flickering fluorescent light. He checked the digital schedule board. Last train, 12:45 a.m., right on time. A moment later, he heard it. The low rumble of a train approaching through the tunnel. The wind pushed through the station first. Then the headlights appeared in the darkness. The train rolled slowly into the station and stopped. But something about it felt strange. The cars looked older than the usual subway trains. The paint along the sides was scratched and faded, and the interior lights were dim. The doors slid open. Evan hesitated for a moment, then stepped inside. There were only 4 other passengers in the train car. A man sitting near the front, a woman staring out the window, an elderly man in the corner, and someone sitting alone at the far end. None of them looked at Evan when he entered. The doors closed. The train began moving again. At first, everything seemed normal. The train passed through the first tunnel, then slowed to a stop at the next station. The doors opened. No one got on. No one got off. The train continued, but something was wrong. Evan had been riding this subway line for nearly 3 years, and he didn't recognize the station names passing outside the window. The next stop was called Oak Ridge Station. He had never heard of it before. The platform outside looked old. The walls were covered with cracked tiles. Dim lights flickered overhead. The doors opened again. This time someone stepped inside, a tall man wearing a long coat. He walked slowly into the car and sat down without speaking. The train doors closed, and the ride continued. 10 minutes later, the train stopped again. Another unfamiliar station. Another silent platform. Another passenger entered. A woman. Her clothes looked outdated, like something from decades ago. Evan glanced around the train. The number of passengers was growing, but something about them felt wrong. None of them were talking. None of them were using their phones. None of them were even blinking. They just stared forward, waiting. The train entered another tunnel, but this time the tunnel lasted longer, much longer. Evan checked his phone. There was no signal. 5 minutes passed, then 10. The train was still moving through darkness. Finally, the train slowed, and the doors opened again. But when Evan looked outside, there was no station, just darkness beyond the platform lights. And something moving in the shadows, a figure stepped forward from the darkness. Its movements looked stiff, unnatural. As it stepped into the light, Evan noticed something terrifying. The figure's eyes were completely white. The passenger slowly walked into the train car and sat down. The doors closed. The train began moving again. Evan stood up. He walked toward the conductor's cabin, but when he looked through the glass window, the driver's seat was empty. There was no one controlling the train. Yet it continued moving, perfectly steady, perfectly silent. Evan backed away slowly. The other passengers were now staring at him. Every single one of them, their eyes empty, their faces pale, watching. Then the train speakers crackled to life. A distorted voice echoed through the car. Next stop, final destination. The train slowed. The tunnel ahead opened into a station unlike the others. The platform was enormous, stretching into darkness. Dozens of figures stood waiting, motionless, facing the train. Evan felt his stomach drop because he realized something. None of the passengers who had entered earlier were standing anymore. They were all still sitting, waiting. For him, the train doors opened. The voice spoke again. Last stop. Every passenger turned toward Evan. Smiling, Evan ran. He jumped off the train and sprinted down the platform. He didn't stop running until he found a staircase leading upward. When he finally burst out onto the street, he collapsed on the sidewalk. Police later searched the subway system, but they found nothing. No station matching the one Evan described. No record of a train arriving at that platform. And according to the transit authority, the last train that night had stopped running 20 minutes earlier, before Evan had even entered the station. Evan refuses to take the subway anymore, but sometimes late at night, when the city is quiet, he still hears something beneath the streets, the distant rumble of a train and the sound of doors opening, waiting for the next passenger.